Hey guys, I'm here with Jake Cross today, and Jake is going to give you the answer to the question of, can I do a deal with no money out of my pocket? Another question that a lot of people have is, how do I get paid while putting properties in my portfolio? Because a lot of people start wholesaling so they can stack cash. They go, oh, I'm wholesaling pace because I need to stack cash. I go, man, you got to put properties in your portfolio. And they say, well, the problem is pace. I'm doing wholesaling so I can put cash in the bank. Today, Jake is going to talk about how he accomplished both. He was able to put 8 units, that is 4 duplexes, in his portfolio, seller finance, 0% interest. He did have to put 10% down, but Jake's a smart guy. He learned how to raise private capital in our community, and he was able to bring private capital to the deal and ultimately get paid to put 8 properties in his portfolio. So we will get to that today, but I want to know the man behind the deal, where he came from, because a lot of people jumping into the game of real estate assume that myself or other people in our community just were born with these skills and these levels of understanding and these mindsets and all of those types of things. I want to point out today that that is not the case, and that Jake was in a position that you might very well be in of, I'm trying to learn this game. I'm trying to start from scratch, and I want to know what's possible, and I want to know people that I can work with. So we're highlighting Jake today, so hopefully you guys can reach out to him, whether you're a private money lender looking for a place to park your money, whether you're somebody that has a lead that needs help with, whether you're maybe a contractor or a property manager that says, hey man, I'd love to have Jake hire me to manage his properties. I don't know what Jake needs, but let's get into it today. Jake, tell everybody, where are you at? Where are you from? Family background. How did you jump into real estate? Give me a story. Tell me all about yourself, brother.
Yeah. So it's been quite the journey for me. Pace, obviously, I've loved getting to know you more and more as we've dove into SubTo further and further. But I grew up in Dallas, Texas as a kid. Didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew older. I just knew I wanted to be in something that provided opportunities. Diving deep down the rabbit hole, my dad had a lot of struggles at times with employment, going through a lot of the job crashes and things like that were happening through 2008 and some of those other ones that happened. And so seeing that, I knew that I wanted to set some type of change in career path for myself so that my family didn't have to worry about money in the same way, trying to build some of that generational
Did
wealth.
your mom work as well, or just your dad?
Nope, just my dad. So
just dad. How big is your family?
We have myself and my 2 siblings. So there are 3 kids. So
3 kids. Got it. Dallas, Texas. Your dad was a W-2. He rode the wave of the ups and downs, and basically, probably wasn't even necessarily about money. It sounds like your dad had a lack of control based on the lack of options he had. His option was his W-2, right?
So he did, and he had a lot of different jobs that he bounced between, and he did it. I mean, I will say this: my dad did a fantastic job of always providing for us. So that's not what I'm saying at all. But just the stress seeing that put onto the family at times. So that was something that I set immediately as a goal when I was younger that I wanted to change. I had some good friends who were hospital administrators, so I thought I wanted to be a hospital administrator for a long time. Went through college. While I was in college, I got my first taste of sales whenever I was on break from summer vacation time. I'd never really went home, but I went off to go do door-to-door sales, selling pest control out in California.
Nice.
So I had 3 years doing that. So I got a little bit of sales taste there.
Did you make some good money?
I made some good money. Yeah. Enough I funded all of my own college and everything through, and I was able to graduate debt-free from that, and then also went on to grad school, which was great.
So you learned how to talk to people. You learned how to get a deal done. You learned how to overcome fear. You went through adversity. You essentially were like, I got to go knock doors to sell pest control. Yeah. And when a pest control guy comes to my house, I'm like, bro.
Yeah.
Please leave. I already have a pest control guy. So you went through thousands and thousands of what I call breadcrumbs. And breadcrumbs mean, obviously the story of Hansel and Gretel. Hansel and Gretel threw out breadcrumbs so they could follow back to where they were coming from. And you essentially were picking up breadcrumbs, which are no's. Anytime I get a no, I'm like, oh, that's another breadcrumb leading me to a deal or leading me to a sale or leading me to a paycheck. Yeah. You got used to hearing no and realizing that's a normal standard way of living in the sales world. So for the people that are listening right now, I get so many people that watch a post of mine, watch a YouTube video. Jake, you're going to talk about a deal, and they're going to say, but how do I do it? Mm-hmm. Well, guys, Jake just gave you some amazing insight, which is you got to get used to the no's. You got to get used to looking for the deals. You got to get used to picking up no's like they're breadcrumbs leading you to a deal. You have to pick up the damn phone is what you have to do. Write that down. If you're saying, well, what do I do? Pick up the damn phone, learn sales, learn communication. So the pest control thing was probably not the most pleasant at times, but it sounds like you made some good money during those summers.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. We made some good money. We were able to walk away with a good chunk of change and help me kind of jumpstart a little bit of my career, figuring out what I needed to do and help get us in a good position to start.
How old were you at this point?
So let's see. I was probably, when I finished undergrad, I was 25. Yeah. I finished
undergrad. So young guy.
Yeah. I finished undergrad at 25, went on to do grad school. That took another 2 years, finished that one when I was 27. And again, I was still pursuing hospital administration. I thought that's what I wanted to do. I do still love healthcare. I think it's a fantastic industry to be in because I think there's a lot of great things that come from it. Left my job there eventually. So I'll walk back through again. So we finished grad school, relocated. Now I'm in Pennsylvania, kind of middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, kind of near where Penn State's at. So not too far from this area.
Beautiful there, dude. All those mountains, the trees, the small little towns that are nestled in between all the valleys, et cetera. It's really, really cool.
Absolutely gorgeous. So we do have fun. This time of year is probably the prettiest because you got all the trees changing and
yeah, you got the reds, the yellows, the oranges, all that kind of stuff. Leaves are falling, et cetera. Yeah. What city are you in specifically?
We're based in Hollidaysburg, so it's kind of next to Altoona area. Like I said, just about. We're about 30, 45 minutes south of State College.
I love how everything's called a burg there.
Yep.
Pittsburgh,
everything.
Harrisburg.
Yeah.
Hollidaysburg.
I didn't grow up out here, and we moved out here, and it's funny because even the little neighborhoods will have burg on them too. So you can live in a specific neighborhood in town, and that has somehow has burg on there too, which is fun.
That's so great. All right, so you guys move out there. You were pursuing being a hospital administrator even then.
Yep.
My understanding is that Pittsburgh has like one of the largest medical education parts of the whole entire country. Is that correct? Like traveling nurses all go there. Everybody gets trained there. It's a massive college all around that.
Yeah. So there's a couple of really big health systems based out of Pittsburgh, and that's actually one of them that I worked for. So I was working for UPMC, which is one of the really big, well-known health systems in the area. They own a couple of regional hospitals out this direction. So I was helping at one of the regional hospitals here in Altoona, and I was doing, it was called a fellowship program. So I was going through and doing, it's just like a medical fellowship where I did 2 years training, doing different cycles and rotations through different departments. I will say I learned a ton about business and leadership doing that. And so that has been invaluable to be able to pull back on. But one of the things I did realize by the end of that thing, I got put into a full-time role for a little while, and I was overseeing regional telemedicine for this entire chunk of the state, which is really good. But I just realized I was not an integrator. I didn't like being the guy who was doing the operations day to day and having the HR conversations. And that's not what got me excited. And so I love to be more on the strategy side of things, talking about how do we make stuff happen, coming up with ideas. So we started diving into, and I'd share ideas. And then it drove me insane when it was politics or other reasons that would squash these good ideas that could help patient care, but politics and other things got in the way. So I quickly realized that wasn't the right fit. So
what's interesting to me about this is that we all choose a profession, a path, or what we think is our purpose based on our circle of influence.
100%.
You did not pick this path because you woke up one day and said, I want to do this on my own accord. It was your circle of influence that you basically, through osmosis, got the motivation to go down this path. And I want everybody to understand that. It's such a great nugget for you to understand. The things you're doing in your life, the decisions you've made, the path you've chosen was not a choice you made. It was a group of people you were around that told you what was possible in life.
Yeah.
And you get older and you go, I'm not happy. This is not what I wanted. This isn't what I went through a bunch of BS for. College, putting myself through college, knocking doors, obtaining these skills and these, obviously your degree and all of these other things. You didn't get this to ultimately feel that way. And so here you are finding, I don't like what I chose. But the reality is somebody else chose for you. So You wake up, you're not super happy with this. What was there a change? Was there a book you read? Was there something that like piqued your interest to do something else? What was the turning point?
Yeah. So actually, it's funny. I can remember like the day that it happened. I was sitting there because, like I said, I'd come up with some ideas, presented them, got squashed. And so I was sitting there, I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I make an impact? How do I help people around me? And I remember I was sitting there in my office and I had finished all of my to-do items. And I kept wandering around the hospital saying, hey, how can I help anybody out? I didn't have anything to do at the time. And so I pulled up my computer and I started just Google searching, hey, how to create, again, pulling back to that generational wealth. How do I create good wealth? How do I create impact? Things like that. And then I found real estate and I started reading more. I knew nothing. We didn't own a house at this point. We had rented everything we'd ever lived in, knew nothing about real estate in general. And so just started reading everything that I could. YouTube being awesome, YouTube University, started learning everything I could. I stumbled across Jerry Norton's videos and then by default found you through him as well and latched onto more and more of that. Had a chance to then save up some money and invest that into my education there and joining the mentorship. And that has been huge. Joining SubTo and seeing all the community there and education.
You probably made some of your best friends you've ever had in your life.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's the thing I was thinking about when you were saying, well, my friends were going into hospital administration, so I thought that's what I wanted to do. You made a choice. The biggest choice you made on your own was, I'm going to shift who I spend my time around. And I'm going to get around people that are all like-minded, building wealth, making impact, growing a portfolio, getting freedom. And freedom doesn't mean you're never going to have a worry or a problem or an issue. Freedom means that those worries, problems, and issues are the ones that you created rather than the hospital creating or your boss creating or somebody else in your circle of influence creating, and you by default having to solve other people's problems. The problems you get to solve today and the things you spend time on are things that you created, which is freaking amazing.
100%. And it's funny because the stuff, like, I hope anybody who's listening to this, like, I hope you hear what Pace just said, because I work 10 times harder now and I have way more concerns and things that pop up at times now than I ever did before working in a W-2 job. But again, it's the things that I choose to take on and it's those choices that I get to be able to absorb, which is awesome. So that has been huge. And that freedom right there has meant the world to me. So
amazing. Okay. So you join.
Yeah.
When did you join SubTo?
I joined the very end of 2020. So the first year. So.
What a fun time.
Yeah.
That was back when in 2020, I was still making all the calls for students on Saturdays. I was doing so many more things. And then it was about that point where the students, I hate calling them students, but people don't understand that are watching this, that we don't call SubTo students. I call them community members or leaders or our community. But our community leaders like Uncle Lanza and Alejandro Alvarez and, you know, all these amazing people started saying, I want to lift this community up by showing on a Zoom every week what I do. And then Caroline Kane, who was on my acquisition team, she's like, I want to run a daily dial every morning and that was right at the end of 2020 is when Caroline Kane came over to the SubTo community and started running the daily dial, and everything 10x'd in terms of the value at that point. But you were watching that transition happen when you joined.
Yeah.
End of 2020. So 3 years ago. Wow.
It has been 3 years. Wow. Yeah.
How fast does life go by, bro?
Well, it's funny. In my mind, I was thinking it got to be like a year and a half, 2 years still, but it's been 3 years. So yeah.
I freaking love it. Okay. So you start learning these things, you start collaborating with other people, you learn all new ways of doing business. You realize now, oh my gosh, I can do this. And you've got a very unique deal that we got to talk about today. Right. Yeah. And so people, guys, when you're listening to Jake, you got to reach out to Jake, become friends with Jake, because there's a lot more to his story. There's a lot more that we could dig into. This could be a 3-hour interview, but sadly we only have another 25 minutes. So I'm going to go through and we're going to jump into this deal, break down how the heck did Jake get 8 units in his portfolio, 4 duplexes, 10% down. He didn't have to come up with that money on his own, at 0% seller finance, no bank involved, no credit check. He didn't need to have a W-2 or any credentials to get this deal done. And he also got paid $8,000 on the day they closed escrow on the deal, which is pretty miraculous. So let's talk about the deal.
Yeah.
Where did it come from? What lead source? What was the follow-up process? What were the objections? Let's get into all of that stuff. Let's start with, where the heck did this deal come from?
Yeah, so we do a lot with wholesaling and all that stuff too, but as much as I can take into my portfolio, I try to do it, right? And so we were having a little bit of a slower month, like you talked about. Sometimes you have slow times, and sometimes, you know what I mean, it's facing the rejection. So we were having a slower month. So I hopped on with our team and I said, I'll bet you I can go get a contract before anybody else on our team. And so we did it. And so I hopped on, started making calls, and I actually called this lead. I was just looking at it actually right before we hopped on today. This lead was created a little over a year ago. So somebody, one of our VAs on our team, had called him and gotten a hold of him and said, hey, would you be interested in selling your property? He said, yes, I'd be interested. We tried to get a hold of him a couple times. For some reason, just could never connect again. Somebody on our team did get a hold of him, but it was around the holidays, about almost a year ago now. And he said, hey, I'm not busy now. But we just kept following up. And then I said, I'm going to beat everybody to a contract. And so hopped on and I said, hey, can I talk to you about your property again? We thought he only had one at the time because we hadn't asked good questions just yet, but I talked to him about one of his properties and he said, yeah, we would be interested in selling. Right now we're selling one off every year because we're trying to retire and just trying to get rid of them. And so then obviously my ears are pinging now. And I'm like, so you're looking to retire. Why are you selling just one a year? And he said
Taxes.
Exactly. Yep. Taxes. He said, my accountant told me I should avoid capital gains tax by just doing one a year. And I said, what if we can do it all at once and you can still have the advantages of trying to avoid as much capital gains tax as you can?
What I love about this is a couple of things. Okay. So first off, people always ask, why would a seller sell to you on seller finance? You just said actually two reasons why. Number one, the one we went over very quickly, is that the seller is saying, I'm retiring. Now, think about this, everybody. If you are an owner of real estate, why would you sell your real estate to retire? Isn't real estate supposed to be the thing that allows you to retire because it's quote unquote passive income? The answer is, for probably 95% of the sellers that I've ever spoken to, they don't know how to scale. They don't know how to delegate. They don't know how to get out of the mucky muck of their own rental business. And so what ends up happening is, over 20, 30 years, they accumulate these rentals. They hold on to them for another 20 years until they're ultimately paid off. And they are the ones that are going by the property. They are the ones that are stopping by and talking to the tenants. They're the ones collecting the rent. They're the ones, or maybe a family member. But I can tell you, it's not a professional operation like I thought it was. When I was first starting out, Jake, I'm sure you were probably the same. Yeah. You assumed these landlords knew what the heck they were doing.
Oh, yeah. And you think they have it all figured out. Yeah.
They do not. In fact, they are just holding it together by a string. And so when you come along and you say, I can buy these properties from you, they go, well, I can't sell them all at one time because my financial advisor told me I should only sell one at a time so that I could avoid capital gains tax, or at least lower it. The financial advisor did not understand creative finance. Like, guys, there's so many nuggets in the last 30 seconds of what Jake said that are like the obvious things to me. But when I was brand new, we would have just glazed over it. Seller, obviously, is like every other seller I've spoken to, a tired landlord. He's owned the property, sick of dealing with them, I imagine, and you'll tell me more if I'm right about this. He hasn't scaled. He has no property management really whatsoever. The property management maybe he has, he doesn't like dealing with them. And so it's more of an annoyance to him than just give me my money. I don't want to pick up a phone call. I want to sit on a boat and fish every single day without a single phone call. Whereas me and my portfolio, my team manages everything. I don't even know a single tenant. I don't know what the heck is going on with the properties. I have scaled a business that does not require my input or my output. And so this guy has not. He was motivated to get rid of things. However, he now has a tax implication. Jake comes along and offers seller finance, which he'll get to in a second, I'm sure. And the seller is like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that that was a possibility. You're telling me that I could offload all of these properties in 1 year rather than wait 8 more years to get rid of these, or 4 more years to get rid of these? So there was 2 major reasons right there why the seller, I am going to assume, and there probably is a couple more, that they were willing to do this deal with you. So the third thing, and I'll shut the heck up, but I just want to point this out. You created this lead a year ago, and instead of being a sissy and going, oh my gosh, the seller's not responding back, you understand that people get busy. You understand, I do this all the time where somebody's texting me right now, this guy named Mickey. He's been trying to get on the phone with me for a month. And I'm like, I don't want to get on the phone with you until like January. And so I'm just ignoring him. I'm not saying, hey man, let's push this conversation back till January. That's not what I'm saying. I should, but I'm not, because I'm a human and we do stupid things. This seller also is not just replying to Jake's team and saying, hey, call me in 3 months when I'm not busy. He's just going to ignore you until he's good and ready. Gosh dang it. So you guys persistently and consistently follow up with this guy for months. He replies back. You get on the phone with him and you're talking about one property. You ultimately ask the appropriate questions. He then talks to you about 8 other doors, which is basically 4 duplexes, totaling 8 doors. So you are the one that call him and finally get a hold of him, or was it somebody else?
That was me. Yeah.
And what was that conversation like?
I gave him a call and I just said, hey, can I chat with you for a second? I know we had talked to you about a year ago about your properties, and are you still looking to sell? Where are you at with that process? He said, well, we had 5 duplexes and we sold 1 last year, and then we're looking to sell 1 more this year. We haven't sold it just yet. And I said, well, I want to be the person who buys it, but can we talk a little bit about what you're looking to do? You said you have other ones. How many more are there left? And he said, well, I've got 4 left total. And I said, so can I buy all of them? And he said, my wealth advisor and my CPA, they've told me that I need to be doing 1 a year to avoid cap. And so we walked through that whole thing.
I love that you know, obviously you've learned and you've been educated inside of our community about this stuff, that capital gains tax can be avoided for the most part with seller finance. And you now, a guy who went through hospital administration education, are now educating some guy's accountant and financial advisor. Guys, write that down. In your journey of real estate, you will have to be the smarter human being. You will be smarter than title companies. You will be smarter than escrow officers. You will be smarter than accountants, and you will be smarter than a financial advisor. And that blows my mind, because at one point in my journey, I was like, oh, your financial advisor said that can't be done. Okay, I guess it can't be done. Now I realize that I'm smarter than every financial advisor. And so as Jake goes, no. Let me tell your stupid financial advisor how this is supposed to be done. Is that, I mean, obviously you didn't say that, but is that ultimately the path you took?
We actually had to hop on a call between all 3 of us. I hopped on with their financial advisor and said, hey, let me walk you through what this does and explain. And they had notepads out and they were writing down notes on, okay, what's that word again? What's the verbiage you're talking about? It was all the stuff they'd never even heard of. So we're going through talking about everything. And then we come back and have a second call between all 3 of us. And they said, okay, yeah, it looks all legit. We're good to go. I think this is going to work. And so we got an okay clear from the financial advisor. And I think they felt appreciative that we had helped try to teach them as well. And then started talking about, okay, how do we make numbers work? So then we dove into the numbers.
How did you make the numbers work?
So I told him, I said, for me, it all comes down to entry cost and cash flow, right? So I said, look, because his asking price that he had told us, it was a little above market value still. So if the properties were to go up on the MLS today, they probably wouldn't sell for as much as we ended up buying them for. But I told him, I said, I don't care about that quite as much, as long as I can talk about entry cost and cash flow. And then on the back end, on our exit, if we have any type of balloon, which we ended up putting on this one, can I make sure that my fee is low enough, or my principal is low enough at that point that I'm not concerned about getting back out of the deal and refinancing?
I love it. And he understood that. Obviously, he's a real estate investor. That's what's great about these tired landlords, is they get it. They're not sitting here going, they're not like a regular homeowner, right? So this is where multifamily does get a little bit easier than single families, because these multifamily investors understand this was an investment for them too.
Yeah.
So they're looking at Jake as like a younger version of them, saying, dude, I want to help you out. I want to make sure this works for you. I want you to take this burden off my shoulders. What was the ultimate structure of the deal?
Yeah. So we set it up. We ended up, do you want me to go through the full numbers? So
yeah. I mean, pretend like you've never heard of this before. And what would you want to hear if the audience is sitting there with a pen and paper right now?
Yeah. So the full numbers on the deal. So it's 4 duplexes up in the Indianapolis area. And so it's Midwest. So it's a little bit less expensive. You're not talking about California prices. So we bought everything total for $640 was our total purchase price. We did 10% down. So 64,000 down. That was 0% interest. And that was something that was an objection we had to handle, because he asked, hey, what about interest? And I said, well, we're buying it above market rate right now. So we have the interest built into it.
There you go. Oh my gosh. Dude, this is one of the biggest nuggets I think that I brought to the space is that I was watching all these people buying seller finance deals at 3, 4, 5, 6%. And I come in, I'm like, dude, these sellers are already getting their cake. Why are we letting them eat it too? Right? Like they're asking for all these cherries on top. Like you have a property overvalue. It also needs a little bit of work.
Yep.
You're not going to have to pay any agents because we're directly, working directly with you. And so you're telling me that you want all of that stuff and you want to charge me interest above a high purchase price? No. The high purchase price is your future profit all bundled into one. And so that was the strategy that you took, right?
Yep, 100%.
And the objection that you overcame was sellers like, why would I give you 0% seller finance? You go, well, because I'm already including your profit in the purchase price. You're over retail and you're not going to have to pay commissions and you're not going to have to pay capital gains tax. Did the financial advisor have anything wrong with the 0% seller finance?
No, actually. It's funny. I didn't think about that till now. I think at this point I had built so much rapport with the wealth advisor that at that point, I think they were just trying to learn as much as they could through the process as well. And so to be honest, after we had educated them on how they could do the capital gains strategies and stuff, then at that point, the wealth advisor just kind of sat back and just observed and learned as much as they could. So
what I love about this is that the financial advisor is sitting there probably saying, oh my gosh, one, this kid who doesn't know, is not licensed like I am. He's teaching me and educating me. And number two, they're probably sitting there going, why the crap did I not just do this deal?
Cool thing is I actually built a relationship with the wealth advisor now too. And they're trying to see if they have any other clients who might have properties who want to sell too. So
I love that. Okay. So you guys structure a deal 640 or 650?
640. Yep.
640, $64,000 down. Where does that $64,000 come from? Like people always say in our community, we say we don't usually, there's deals I use my own money on, but when I was coming up and building my business, just like you are right now, I went out of my way to try and bring on financial partners to shoulder the burden of my down payments. So is that what you did on this deal?
Yep. We took a private money lender. We had $70,000 private money loans, so we overfunded a little bit. That's what we started with, was $70,000. We ended up going up to 72 just to make sure we were good. So that's how we got an extra $8,000 in there. And then by the time they prorated taxes and everything to it, it came out really good. Brought in $70,000 in private money, covered all of our down payment plus a little extra in case we had any rehab or repairs that needed to be done in the properties immediately. And we've had a little bit, but we still have a good amount of that left.
Okay, so you've got 8 tenants.
Yep.
How much are those properties renting out for right now?
So they were below market rate, but they were renting.
Which is good. That's a good thing. You want to buy a property that's under rented, and the seller says, I don't want to be the one that's putting the work in to raise the rents, and my tenant could potentially leave and all that kind of stuff. Like most of these landlords are just lazy, right? They didn't get into owning real estate to be a landlord. They're like bothered by the fact that I got to clean this up or I got to do something to the property. You know what? It's just easier to let Susie stay in my property for another 2 years and not raise her rent than it is for me to go in there and do something and then go find another tenant and have maybe a month or 2 months of not having any tenants in that property. So they just kind of take the lazy road, which actually is just leaving meat on the bone for you and your partners, because now you have the ability to do the things he wasn't willing to do. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they were renting total. All the rents came in at about $6,200.
Oh my gosh, that's great. $6,200 on a $640,000 purchase price at 0% seller finance. What the freak?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's a great deal.
Yeah. So we have good cash flow on this one, but $6,200. And then to be honest, a lot of these were under market rent and we've already raised them. So we're already bringing in $6,600 now. And we've got a couple more steps to bring once some leases finished too. So.
Okay. So you're at $6,600. What is your payment to the seller?
So every single month we're paying them $1,920.
What?
Yeah.
That's all you're paying this guy?
That's all we pay the seller. So you're
paying him $1,920. 100% of that $1,920 goes to principal, which you're building silent wealth. There's no interest in there. So you're $640, subtract your $64,000 purchase or down payment. He's financing roughly $576,000 to you guys.
Yep, exactly.
Somewhere around there, 576. Yep. Every month you pay down $1,900.
$1,920. Yep.
Damn, bro. You guys are basically paying down $20,000 a year on this property. Oh my word. Okay, so you're $1,920.
Yep.
And then you've got taxes, insurance, and some other things. You're probably, with like management and everything else, you're probably somewhere around, I would guess, $3,500.
So we pull out a full 30% between vacancy, property management, and CapEx.
So you're $1,800 and all that stuff. Okay.
Yeah, so we pull out a full 30% to set aside for vacancy, property management, CapEx after we pay taxes and insurance, and we pay the seller, and also we have our private money lender. We're paying them. It's a little over $500 every month. By the time we pay all that off, we still walk away with about $1,400 every month.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's after we set aside the CapEx and everything.
$1,400, putting the CapEx into a separate account. Your private money lender is getting paid. And the $1,400 is amazing. I love the $1,400. I love that you're into the deal, no money out of pocket, no credit check, no credentials whatsoever. But the thing I love the most is that $1,920 a month that is paying down your principal. So all in all, like between the $1,400 and the $1,900, essentially, you're building wealth every single month of somewhere around $3,300 a month, right? Between cash flow and mortgage pay down. You also got the tax benefits of owning this property at $640,000. Are you using depreciation this year on this asset to wipe out other active income?
Yes. Yeah.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
So your payment to your private money lender, it sounds like you guys are somewhere around 10%, 12%?
Yeah, 10%.
Okay, 10% simple interest only. Man, we could do a whole hour-long conversation just about that, which is cool. What is your plan for paying down your private money lender? Are you going to pay them down with cash flow? Are you going to maybe wait 4 or 5 years and refinance or sell the property, pay them off, take the cash? What are your thoughts there?
So we talked to the private money lender. We asked what their goals were. And because I think that's huge, because different private money lenders have different goals. And these private money lenders just wanted to put money away. With the stock market where it's at right now, they said, if I can make 10% and it's guaranteed, great. So they're making 10% right now. And we have a balloon with the seller for the seller finance component for 7 years out. And so we just asked the private money lender, hey, in 7 years, when we balloon out the seller, can we then balloon out your payments as well? So until then, we're good to go. So
they'll end up making $70-something thousand in just interest over those 7 years. Something along those lines. $50,000 to $60,000. It sounds like no. It'll be more than that. Yeah, they'll end up making like $60,000-$70,000 in just collecting interest, and then at the end of that 7 years, they'll get their full $64,000 back. They'll essentially have doubled their money.
Yeah.
This is a win for the seller, a win for the financial advisor, a win for you, a win for your private money lender. It's a win for the tenants because you didn't go in there and kick anybody out. You're incrementally raising the rents. It sounds like you're raising rents about $50 a month, something like that.
Yeah, we had one tenant who we did vacate out. She didn't want to renew, and so we bumped that one by $150. So,
are you sure you don't want to be a hospital administrator for the rest of your life?
Oh, absolutely positive.
Look at you, dude. You're creating wealth, man. Like within 3 years of being in the community, you've done so many things. It's just one deal and one thing that you've touched. It's amazing.